People know this car because of the wheels. And they know it's my car because of the wheels and because of the look. If I had a black coupe on 17-inch ponies, would anybody know that that black notch was mine with 17-inch ponies? Yeah, probably not, because there's hundreds of them out there. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the infamous project. Today is going to be a follow-up video slash conclusion to the 18-inch Oz Velas that I bolted on the tip edge coupe sitting here behind me. If you guys saw the last video, you're going to know exactly where I'm coming from, why I bolted them on, how long I've had them, etc., etc. If you guys are tuning in for the first time, well, maybe go check out that video. If not, it's not going to be the end of the world, but it is going to be a wheel-focused video. And I want to talk about finding the right set of wheels for your Fox, what suits you, your personality, your characteristics, something that is a personalized representation of you. So be sure to stay tuned for this episode. I think it's pretty exciting. I'm sure anybody that follows the channel is going to find it exciting. And hopefully, again, if you're new, you're going to find it exciting. So stay tuned. All right, guys, so wheels. There is no shortage of wheels in my life. I've actually done multiple videos on different wheel setups. In fact, I have my wheel wall of wheels, as maybe you want to call it, video, where I had most, not all of my collection, but I had most of my collection at that time sitting behind me, and we talked about everything from Borbets to Simmons to BBS to Oz to ROH, Stearns, you name it. We talked about it, and nothing has changed in terms of my style and what I like. However, there's a lot of wheel options out there. You guys, when I'm walking around the shop, you're always seeing wheels displayed, laying down, on the ground, on cars, everything else, so on and so forth. So if you saw the last video, I explained how I've had this set of 18-inch Oz wheels for a number of years, and I finally got the opportunity to bolt them on this car because the car and the wheels were never in the same location for me to be able to do so. The only time that it happened, I only saw a picture of the wheels bolted on the car, and I was almost disgusted, and I was like, no, go ahead and put the ROHs back on. Now, funny enough, I bolted these wheels on. I mentioned that maybe I'd be selling them, and well, they're sold. So despite the fact now that every day that I've been walking into the shop, because every day I walk into the shop just like this through this door, and the tip edge coupe is normally sitting here under a cover, but I've left the cover off on purpose just so that every time I walk in, I can see how the car looks with those wheels on there. And I have to admit, they've grown on me over the past, and I filmed that video maybe 4 days ago, maybe 5 days. And every day that goes by, I'm like, man, those wheels look good. And well, now I don't have a choice because I sold them. Now, in hindsight, after reading the comments are important. Don't get me wrong. People's feedback is truly important, but I don't even know what the comparison would be here. I'm really good with analogies, but this one I'm a little stumped on. It's like, you can ask your friends for their opinion for certain things. However, wheels, it's like a pair of shoes. It's like a watch. There we go. I knew something would come to me. And I'm not talking about these new smartwatches, whether you have some Android or Apple, whatever smart device on your wrist. I refuse to wear one. I do not need something radiating my wrist on me, nor do I need all the notifications and to be interrupted all day long with that on my wrist. I don't know how some of you do it. If you guys like it, that's on you. But I'm talking old school watch, whether you're a Tag guy, a Rolex guy, Nixon, hell, even a G-Shock, whatever it might be. You might ask your friend their opinion on what watch they think looks pretty good, but ultimately it's going to be your decision because you're the one who's going to be looking at your wrist every time that you're checking the time, and your watch is a representation of you. Same thing with the wheels that you choose for your car. You are choosing them so that you can personalize / individualize your ride in a way that represents yourself and shouldn't be a representation of what everybody else thinks looks good. So I'm not going to go into the 17-inch ponies and all of the trends, let's just put it that way, of what some people follow. I'm not going to get into the cheaper style of wheels. I'm just talking about wheels in general. Whether they are cheap, whether they are expensive, whether they need to be refinished or maybe not. Wheels are a representation of you and your vehicle. If you take pride in washing and detailing your car, you're going to take pride in terms of what the overall look and feel of your car is that the outside world is going to see. If somebody asks you what time it is and you check that watch, you want to be, sure that you have the right time and, that you feel confident with your watch. Otherwise, you wouldn't wear it. I could be completely wrong here, but that's just how I feel. Call it a tip freestyle opinion video. I said I was going to be a little bit more opinionated in 2023. So anyways, going back to the wheels and tires on the Tip Detch Coupe. Without a doubt, in my mind, the ROH Modenas do look better. Genuinely, they do. I feel like the thinner spokes, the darker color in the center with the polished barrels just has a better contrast and just sets the car off. Now, with that said, I do feel like there is a place for the silver on silver, and we still have the polished barrels that are giving a little bit of contrast, and we have a contour and a design with the rounded curves that I feel complements the Detch kit very, very nicely, as well as the natural body lines and curves of the Fox. So I think that there's something to be said for the design of this wheel and what's going on with the theme of this car, and the fact that, well, it matches the theme of my Silver Lightning. And funny enough, these are both YN silver vehicles. So in 2000, this YN silver, same as 93 YN silver. So kind of a cool fact there. 93 being the only year that had YN silver. I guess it was the going into the modernist times of things. But back to the wheels. I'm a little upset that I sold them. I've already found a replacement. The joys of social media, right? I posted the video on this. Somebody reached out to me because they wanted to buy the wheels. And then on Instagram, I posted up, if anybody knows where there's a set of 19s, reach out to me. And an individual did, and he happened to have a set of 19 by 8.5, 5 by 114 threes. So I'm going to take those 19s and most likely get them redone. I'm gonna have to do the same thing. I'm gonna fill where the one bolt is here on them, because the 19s still have a bolt right in the center of these spokes, and I feel like it takes away from the look and the design. So I will get a stud welded and fill that in, just as was done on these guys. And what's gonna happen is, when I was talking about the longer spokes looking a little bit better, and I'm gonna be able to build the offset so we get more dish in the front to kind of mimic what we got going on here in the rear. In fact, if it was like this in all fours, I think it'd actually be okay. So maybe we'll see. So that is what I have. A set of 19-inch. So our spoke is actually going to be a little bit bigger. Our wheel is going to be bigger. And I feel like we can fill up the wheel well just a little bit more. I feel like things are looking small in the front. If things were just a touch bigger up there, it's going to look that much better. Now, the other thing that's very interesting that I want to share with you guys is your ride height. I'm a low to the ground kind of guy. This car is on RideTech air suspension. Bags, maybe I will do a video when I'm swapping the wheels off and just go over that with you guys for anybody who's interested in how that works. But ride height and your wheels play a really, really important role. I'm going to show you guys right now. You guys can see how nice this car looks sitting down on the ground. Well, at least to me, I see how nice it looks sitting down on the ground. You know, this car has a nice ride height sitting there too. Static dropped, everything else is static. And let's go ahead and put the car up. All right, so the compressor's humming in the background, but I've raised the car up to what I would call a drive height, ride height. And if you weren't on air, this is probably where, you know, the average person would have their car sitting. Now, does the car look as good with these wheels on it? I personally do not really like the way that the side profile of that tire looks. I feel like we got a little bit of stretch going on here, but stretch that doesn't necessarily look great. We have a little bit of, you know, that roundedness from the stretch here, plus the curve of the spoke, which is just kind of, I don't know, making stuff look curvy in a bad way. In the back here, I feel like, again, we have a little bit of stretch. It doesn't look as bad as the front does. Like, look it up in the front now, the way the wheel and the tire looks. There's just, it looks off. This guy looks better with the offset, with the center being in more. And it's really not that bad. It's more the front that gets me. Now, the other side here. I feel like this looks better. We don't have the stretch that the other side has. I feel like have something that fits the wheel well a little bit more. Not sure how, because I believe that's the exact same size tire in the front. The rear, this is actually a slightly smaller tire. This is a 255 35, and the other side is a 265 35. So that one's actually got a tad bit more meat to it. You see, now the car's sitting up in the air like this, it's not the same. So I'm not upset that I sold these wheels. I'm happy that I've gone through the process, and I think that that is something that I wanted to share, is that, you know, making your wheel choice is so personal, or can be. Maybe it's not as important to you as it is to me. To me, it's a big deal. Like stuff like this, it keeps me up at night. I will sit and do math for like days just to make sure that offsets are right, tire sizes are right, we get the right profile, we get the right sidewall, the right look. And, you know, I've said it time and time again, it is not easy to be able to be low and have fitment where everything works. You know, we went through it on this car here with the math on tire profile size, as I was using the tire profile to dictate how high the car is off the ground, or how low to the ground, either way you want to look at it. The same thing was done here on the Cali Coupe. These static drops this low are not easy to do, and to make sure, again, that your wheel fitment allows you to have enough to be able to turn without rubbing, to go over bumps without rubbing, and yet to still fill up the wheel well and not look like your wheels are sitting way in or with a bunch of poke and everything else. So if you guys are on the fence about what wheels that you want for your car, find a guy who can Photoshop for you. There's actually an individual, I believe he's Canadian, 92 Silver Fox. He's been doing tons of Photoshops on his GT with maker's wheels, with random sets of wheels, and slamming things down, playing with ride heights, playing with different looks. And the only thing there, be careful. A picture versus what you see in reality are two different things. I opted not to have these wheels on this car for the past 4 years over a picture, because the way that I saw it in the picture, I wasn't happy with. If I had to just, or maybe if Notorious had just ignored me and left the wheels on the car, I probably would have been fine with it. Now, again, going through all the process, I think that the conclusion or the ultimate outcome here is going to be perfect. I think the set of 19-inch Oz Velas is going to look great on here. Some of you guys are going to argue and say 19s don't look good on a Fox. I will argue that based on just the design alone. Some wheels look bigger than other wheels. Most of you guys, if I asked you right now what size that was, you would tell me something that is an inch smaller than what you think this wheel is. I bet you 9 out of 10 people would actually get it wrong. Most people would probably say that that's like an 18 and the other is a 17, or they'd say this is a 19 and the other is an 18, simply by spoke design. Larger spokes, got step lip, makes things look smaller than they really are, versus a non-step lip and thinner spokes in the center. So I know I've sort of just kind of like babbled on in this episode, but I wanted to get it out there. Now you guys can sort of see some of my crazy train of thinking sometimes, and hopefully you understand it, or hopefully it's helped you to make a decision on what wheels you want to go with, or to spark your interest in terms of which direction that maybe you want to go. And again, doesn't matter what wheels you're putting on your car, guys. If you are happy with those wheels and that look is the one that ultimately makes you happy, go for it. And the true justification or reasoning to this, at least in my mind, is if you ask anybody that's been following the Infamous project for a long time, I could be completely wrong here, but this is based on all the feedback I've got. People know this car because of the wheels, and they know it's my car because of the wheels and because of the look. Same thing with the Silver Lightning. That Lightning is like a staple to the internet back in the day, simply because of the wheel setup that was on that truck and the stance and everything else. Everybody knows. If I had a black coupe on 17-inch ponies, would anybody know that that black notch was mine with 17-inch ponies? Yeah, probably not, because there's hundreds of them out there. Again, nothing wrong with that. There's tons of factory looking 86 GTs just like this one out there, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's the look you're going for. But this is the Infamous project, and this is about personalization and self-representation, and that's why I wanted to throw this video out there. So if you've watched to the end, thank you so much. If I lost you in the beginning, well, you ain't here to see the ending, so that's all good. But thank you again always for your support, for following along. Like I said, when I pull these wheels off to get them ready for shipping, I will probably, we'll do some footage on the air ride setup. So guys, be sure to stay tuned for the video on that, and we'll see you here next time on the Infamous project.